Alright, people. We're live again. Let's try this again with hopefully less technical nonsense this time. Oh, hi! Alright. I need to get, for God's sakes, I need to get this in the stand. Alright, hopefully nobody else calls me because apparently that makes the YouTube application lose its shit. 4 people are back already. Wow, that's more than I thought. Alright, let me post the new link over in... Yeah, I gotta do some things here, guys. Give me a second. At least now you can see the beautiful Acrobat. Let me do some things on the computer here real quick. I need to go to grab the new link. I'm going to drop it in the old chat. And I need to get the new chat up on my computer here so that I can see it. And then we'll be golden. So let's go in here. Live now. Okay, so I need to get the link for this. Okay, good. There is the new link in the old chat. So now I need to close down the old chat. And I need to get the new chat opened. And we'll be good. So here's the new chat. I'm going to pop it out so I can make it nice and big. Alright. There we go. Alright, cool. Put Do Not Disturb on your phone. That's a good idea. I have Do Not Disturb set up for at night, though. I don't know if you can just turn that on. That's a really good idea, though. Actually, the better idea is for me to stop using my goddamn phone for these live streams. So I'll figure out. Don't you dare, Nabi. Oh, guys. Oh, guys. Guys, look. Look what he's doing.
No, don't get the props.
Oh, no. Let him get the props. I love it. All right, we're turning into a cat stream. We're doing it. There's going to be like 7,000 people watching in 10 seconds because it's cat content. There he is, guys. The boy who lived. Anybody who doesn't know, this little guy developed pancreas issues a month ago and cost us a ton of money and scariness. That big weird thing on the side of his neck is where the feeding tube has been for a month. We had to feed him through a tube, medicine and everything else. But that thing came out. Now his neck just looks like a bad Photoshop. Yeah, money well spent indeed, Spud. He's our kid, man. We will more than likely not have children. Maybe, who knows? But for the time being, he is our kid. So let's watch him be a little shitbird kid and wreck props. What do you think? Oh, he's getting me. All right, buddy. Be a good boy. If you're not gonna play with the props, then you're not gonna be on my stream, you little jerk. All right, so let's talk about Magic Smoke. He's going back, guys. He's going back. There he goes. Whoop, he's getting him. He's gonna eat him. He's gonna eat him. Look at that little jerk. Look at him. Look at him. Oh, whoa. Oh, he's getting into it now. Yeah. Oh, all right, he's out of here. Kristen, can you do me the biggest favor in the world and bring me some food? I'm so hungry. I haven't eaten yet. All right, awesome. Look at that little cat. Look at that little bad boy. All right, guys. All right. Let's do it. Let's do it. Prop pirate, awesome. All right, cool. Let's get this rolling here. So, I swapped the flight controller on this Acrobat and because I wanted to get black box. Mark Spatz and I, he's one of the main Betaflight devs, have spent a little bit of time trying to figure out how to make the filtering and the tuning on the new, on Betaflight 4, now 4.1 I guess, pretty soon, now that it's in release candidate. Trying to figure out how to get the filtering more targeted towards what happens in micros, because there is still definitely a performance gap in micros that I don't, now that we're kind of figuring out which motors are better suited for these props, I don't understand why that performance gap is still there. And one of the things that would make the most sense would be that it's software related. So we're going to try to figure that out, but in order to do so, to get any actual data to figure that out, you got to have black box. I don't think most people need black box. I think that the software is now so good that quads, you can get a quad to like 80, maybe 90% perfect tune without black box, or you can just leave it stone stock and it might already be there. I mean, the stock tunes are phenomenal now, but with micros, I don't think that's the case. I think micros are maybe like at 50% in terms of their what's the word I'm groping for? In terms of their potential. I think there's more potential in micros than we've been able to get from them thus far. So, switched over to a Talon flight controller. I think I bridged the wrong pads. Basically, they do this thing where they put 3 pads next to each other, and if you bridge these two, it sends VBAT to X source. If you bridge these two, it sends 5 volt to that same source. In this case, I think the source was the VTX pad, because I believe there's 2 of these little guys on the flight controller. There's one of them for VBAT and 5 volt to the VTX pad, and there's another one, there's a second one for the DSMX, I guess, people who need 3.3 volts. So you bridge these two and it sends 3.3 volts, you bridge these two and it sends 5 volts to the pad that's powering the receiver. And I think I just did it wrong. The instruction manual for the for this flight controller, which is an older flight controller, this is the Talon F4, the instruction manual is not that great. I remember thinking that it wasn't that great, and I was kind of taking a shot in the dark, and then I thought, nah, I've done this a million times, I'll be fine. And go figure, I wasn't. So hopefully that makes all of you that have blown something up recently feel a little bit better, that it's not just you. I have built probably 40 or 50 different rigs. Obviously I don't own that many, but you build a rig, you find a better piece, you tear it down, you rebuild it. So, that's twice that you've built it, and then you do it again, that's 3 times, blah, 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 blah. Skunkworks, I actually think the Acrobat is fairly easy to work on. The only thing I don't like is the fact that you have to do what I'm doing right now. You have to take the entire clean plate off to get at it. Other than this, which goes pretty quickly, this doesn't take that long. Other than this process, once you get the clean section off, I think it's a joy to work on compared to some of my other micros. My God. I have my rig with a Tarsier in it. That stack has to be so tight because it's just a single stack with 4 boards in it. That single stack has to be so tight that it is just a total nightmare to work on. Whereas the extra room of the Acrobat is really, really nice. So, I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying, because I thought it was a pain in the ass to work on this for a while too. But after I had taken this clean plate, this clean section apart 100 times during the prototyping process, it just became kind of quick to yank it apart and to realize, like, I need to unscrew this, and this, and then this piece pops off, and away we go. So, yeah, you're not wrong, but it could be worse. That's the moral of the day. It could be worse, guys. It could be worse. Why did the video just freeze on my computer? Oh no! Oh, there it is. Hold on. Hold on. I think I got this. I think I got this, guys. The power bank wasn't on. No, the power bank is going dead. All right, please stream come back, please. Oh, yes, it did. Whee! You guys might need to refresh. All right, today is just fraught with problems. Thank you guys for sticking with me. Let me real quick blast through the comments, and then we'll go a little bit further on the Acrobat. Where's the bad Photoshop? Yep. Cats are people too. Damn right, Spudnik. God damn right. I was asked. Okay, you guys are talking amongst yourself. Awesome. Mr. Tux says Ciati's website is great. What website, Mr. Tux? You talking about CiatiIndustries.com? I can't imagine that you would have found that. That's my old photography site. Shot 600. Prop Pirate feels very at home in the stream, like he's hanging with the boys. That's kind of what I want. I just want this to be more of a hangout session than, hey, watch me, work, or like I'm going to train you how to build a rig. I don't want to do that. I want to hang out with you guys. I want to talk to everybody. I want to answer questions. I want this to be an informal thing, which is kind of why I've been doing it. It's another reason I've been doing it on my phone too. I don't want to get too fancy with this, but these problems are becoming a pain in the ass. So I do need to do a little bit of something so that we don't deal with this shit freezing, because that blows. Okay, here we go. Tuck says the cat's reviewing the prompts. He was chewing on the ones that I don't like too. It's funny. All right. Slide by is gonna screw around with the ESC. Yeah, ESCs fail, man. The turtle mode is really hard on ESCs. Also finding a good ESC is really rough. I'm on in 5-inch land. I'm actually switching away from SpeedX ESCs over to Acon because I've had a bunch of SpeedX ESCs fail lately, which is just really frustrating. Bounce the props by scraping some plastic off. Yes. All right. I want to race with a CB3 frame. They said minimum 3-inch to race. I think it would be an advantage hitting gates with a smaller quad. It can be, Prop Pilot. Thank you, honey. On a smaller, more technical track, 3-inch quads rule. And here's a funny insider baseball. CB in the CB3 name, CB stands for crybaby, because Rotorius over in Europe, their race team, White Goat, I think they're called, they would show up with the CB3. Well, it got its name because they would show up with that quad and they would beat up on the 5-inch guys on the more technical tracks, and the 5-inch guys would become crybabies. So that's where the CB came from. CB stands for crybaby. So yeah, there's a fun little known fact for you. Rotorius trivia. Bigger quad will have more top speed. Yeah, for sure. What do we got? Acrobat was the first quad you built. That's interesting. It was annoying working on the bind and fly B-roll I started with was much easier to work on. Love the simple design of the unibody bottom plate. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. A regular Alien. There is the reason why my 5-inch builds are all Alien style, and actually all of my builds other than the Acrobat are standard Alien style builds. A big reason for that is ease of working on them, for certain. All right, cool. Caught up-ish on the chat. Oh, really good question by Matt Guy. Do you recommend adding throttle mix into yaw to avoid dropping low out of the sky? If no, what mixes are decent? So for a long time on my brushless whoop that I flew acro with, I had what you're talking about. I had a mix, because with a whoop, when you would add yaw in, it would just plummet. With a brushed whoop, I should say. it would really lose altitude. So I added a little bit of throttle in for on the yaw, and it really helped. It helps make it feel like every other quad, and that's an important part of my answer here, because if the rig doesn't lose altitude when you add yaw, I don't think you should do it, because when you start doing that kind of stuff, one rig is going to feel way different than another, and that's adjusting between them is going to be a real pain in the ass. I got to take a bite of this beans on toast here, or I might die because I'm very hungry. So hold on. Oh my God, Tucks, you found Ciati Industries? That's ridiculous. That site's like 15 years old, bro. OG! That was where I hosted all my photography. For clients. All up weight. Ty. AUW stands for all up weight. So like with the battery. Damn right, Fraser. I'm gonna be farting up a storm later. Maybe tomorrow night. Maybe tomorrow night's stream I can fucking fart up a hurricane in this room. Stream will go green. I'll put a green filter on the stream. You guys will know why. Because of fart gas. Oh, Tux, that's good to know. I should get rid of that and replace it with my Patreon. All right. Goddamn right, Bumble. Money's gotta come from somewhere. What's this big glob of shit on the processor? Did this processor let go? Hold up. Hold up. Say it ain't so. Well, that doesn't look promising. There's no way I'll be able to show this to you guys, but, well, maybe. I'm playing around more and more with holding the 5x loop up to the camera on the thingy in the place. Oh God, what fell? Oh, okay, it's just a battery tray. It's okay. Let me see. Oh, I might be able to show you guys. Just gotta get it angled right. Everybody stop screaming at your monitor. This is harder than it looks. Okay. Oh. You guys see that? That big weird blob? That wasn't there. That's new. And I don't like it. So maybe I didn't do anything wrong. Maybe the flight controller just let go. Strange. Okay, so first things first. I'm gonna plug the flight controller into USB because that'll just put. Just go on Amazon and type in loop 5x loop. I think it's LOUPE. These are invaluable. You look like a total asshole when you're using it, but luckily you only use it when you're at home working on quads, you know, in which case you kind of look like an asshole anyway. But you know, you're in good company, right? Because you're here. More beans on toast. Oh, I see some good questions up on top of my stream window. The naked pilot is here. Naked pilot. I hope you're female. It doesn't look like you are from your little logo, but it's a good name.
Prop Pirate, you asking me that? Spaghetti on toast. Oh my god, Stefan, what's that? I guess it makes sense. We eat bread with spaghetti. Interesting. I'll have to replace it now, man. If any of the components on any of these boards fail, I can't replace them. Too small. Plus, I wouldn't know where to get replacement pieces. You know, where the hell do you get these chips from? Alright. Better. I feel better already. So to finish my question for my answer for Mackay, yeah, don't run any mixes unless you absolutely have to. It's just not a good idea. You'll learn to fly around it. Just let yourself fly around it, and you'll be a better pilot for it. That's my final answer on that one. Great question though. Ty K. Sounds like I should be picking motors after I have a total weight. How large is the range of acceptable weight for a single motor size? Assume that range is smaller for smaller motors. Yeah, I find that the window itself will be like 30 to 40 grams. So like a rig so currently on a 3-inch prop, if I build a rig that all up is 200 grams, I'm gonna want to put a 1306 on it. That'll work down to like 180 grams, and it'll just have a better power to weight ratio. That'll also work up to like 210, maybe 220 grams. A little bit less of a power to weight ratio. So, yeah, try to stay there. If I was to go beyond like 220, now I want to look at like a 1506 or a 1505 or something with a little more stank to it. So yeah, it's another really good question. License to Drive says, what would you use 1407 3200 motors on? They're on a lightweight. What? They're on a lightweight 5-inch frame. Oh my god. So that must have been an interesting build. Holy hell. Those motors must have had no control of those props. So 3200 kV is kind of low for the smaller props. I understand why they put that on, why they chose those motors for a big ass 5-inch prop. No, hey, no, don't eat those props. You can eat these other ones. Don't eat these. What's your deal today? You've never been this interested in my props before. Come here, you big bastard. Get over here. I'm gonna have to hold this cat to get him to calm. Oh, he's biting me. Oh, he's biting me. Oh, I got him. Now I got him. All right. Man, this really is the kitten stream today. All right, here you guys go. If I have to deal with them, you have to deal with them too. What were we talking about? Oh, 1407 3200s. So if you're going to put something that low kV on like a 3-inch prop, you're going to need voltage. So you're going to need like 5S or maybe even 6S to get enough RPM out of that. If you did 5S, what I would say is, or maybe, no, I wouldn't, there's still, it's not enough motor for a 4-inch prop. I would, yeah, maybe like run those on 5S or actually sell them and get something that's 4,000 kV. That's what I would personally do. But if you're absolutely hell-bent on keeping them, get your 5S on. And so Speedix's 20x20 ESCs are awesome. I don't understand why their 30x30s aren't working out for me. But they have a new 20x20 ESC that's like, I don't know, 20 amp, 25 amp, 30 amp maybe, that will take 5S. Most of the 20x20 ESCs will not take anything more than 4S unless they're gigantic, which we don't want. But there's a new Speedix. It's like IS30 or IS35, I think. That's what you want for those motors so that you can run 5S and get the voltage up. Also, keep in mind you're absolutely going to have to run a capacitor to go up from 4S. So keep that in mind so you don't blow your shit up. But that would be my recommendation there. Beans, magical fruit. Any other recommendations for mixes? Yeah, Mac, I really think you should stay away from mixes. I think it's better to just force yourself to learn to fly around it, because your thumbs will certainly adapt. For sure they will, and you'll be a better pilot for it. All right, getting caught up. Awesome, you guys are helping out. Much appreciated as always. And your pick, Rick Butler asks, your pick for first indoor micro quad plug and play. That's going to be one of these brushless whoops. If you can wait a little bit, I am helping out with testing Newbie Drone's brushless whoop. If you need something right now, I would go to tinywhoop.com, and whatever their preferred brushless setup is, that's the route that I would go. There's a lot. Oh God! Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy! Okay, buddy. Okay, buddy. All right. Good boy. Good boy. So yeah, that's going to be my recommendation. Starting off with a whoop, in my opinion, is really nice because you can fly inside all the time and just get as much stick time in as humanly possible. You guys are looking at my feet. That's pretty fucking nasty. There you go. That's better. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. Getting, and the theory behind going with either Newbie Drone or Tiny Whoop is those guys have the test pilots that are actually flying these things and refining the setups. So you're going to be getting a setup that is as bulletproof and flies as good as possible. Some of the cheaper options out there, they're cheaper for a reason, right? You get what you pay for. They have less R&D into them. They're not going to fly quite as good. So I'd rather spend an extra couple bucks, because down the road, if you love this hobby and you get into it, you're going to want the higher end stuff anyway. So spend a few extra dollars. It'll also hold its value better if you decide to get rid of it or upgrade. A lot of reasons to do that. All right. Plasma Trout runs 3200s on a Gecko. It's all right, not a power monitor though. Yeah, 4S on 3000-ish kV motors works, but it doesn't feel like a 5-inch. It doesn't have any of that pop. Fraser always starts with the battery. There aren't really many good micro choices. 302S, 453S, 454S, 654S, and so on. Yeah, man. There are not a ton of options, but luckily there are some options. There was a time when there literally weren't the options. Like there wasn't a 554S, there wasn't a 654S. So we're getting there. License to Drive was expecting a what the fuck reaction from you in reference to. It's hard when I'm this behind on the chat. That's why I try to keep up on the chat, because stuff like this is tough. Oh, right, the 5-inch on the 1407s, yeah. Naked Pilot loves gray cats. Me too, man. This is my second cat, and they've both been gray. Long-range 2-inch drones. Kind of thought of doing that for a couple of kilometers. So here's my opinion on long-range micro, that guy. Micro quads don't. So when you talk about long range, you're talking about covering great distances, right? And to do so, you have to have horsepower to push air. Wind resistance, air resistance is exponential. So even if you build something that's super lightweight, if it doesn't have a lot of horsepower to push the air, it doesn't matter. The weight really doesn't matter as much as just raw power to just push and push and push and push more and more and more air. So as per that, right, you build a micro that's really light and doesn't have a lot of power to try to push a ton of air, and you end up with something that you really kind of can't long range because it doesn't push enough air to do that. So you're just kind of limited, which is not necessarily what you want. So yeah, I wouldn't build a micro long range rig. Also, when you're that far away, the amount of noise that you're making doesn't really matter. So just build a 5-inch and just make a whole bunch of noise really far away. They're not going to catch you, right? But yeah, I have no info on what a good long range micro build would be because I just have no interest in doing it. But basically, you would follow the same philosophy as with big stuff. Put a big battery on it. Look for motors that are efficient. So no 1408s. You're going to be looking for a wider stator motor, like a 15 or a 16 width stator. Yeah, just keep your throttle under control. You can long range anything. You just have to be really careful on the throttle. Quads are really surprisingly efficient if you just keep control of the left stick. Okay, so Spudnik asks, what battery do you recommend for an Acrobat with 1408 3750s and 3x3x3 props? At the very least, a 4S 650, but I know that most 1408s are very hungry, so you might need to go up to an 850 4S. But my initial recommendation would be 650 4S, and whatever the flight time you get, that's the flight time you get. That's already a pretty heavy battery. Daniel Robinson asks, have you ever tried a Yi 4K camera? I have not. Daniel, I'm not popular enough essentially for anybody to send me free stuff quite yet. Maybe down the road if you awesome people keep supporting me on Patreon. But at the moment, I don't really get sent any free stuff to do any kind of cool testing like some of the other guys. I'm sure somebody that you trust has tested it though. If you search on YouTube for Yi 4K camera, I'm sure Bardwell or Nick Burns or one of the other awesome guys has tested that camera. You can get some info. All right, cool. We're almost there. Good. Capacitors seem like a critical piece of gear. I don't tend to need them. I use them more for. I use them more if I get dirty video. They typically don't fix it, but it's worth a quick try to see if it'll clean it up a little bit. So yeah, I don't know. If the electronics are good, they have capacitors built into them, so you don't need to add it. I see a lot of companies that are, going to capacitors to band-aid a problem. It's build your ESC better so that you don't need a capacitor. Don't make me fix it on the back end. So, I don't know. All right, let's. Awesome, I'm caught up on the chat. Let's actually do what the stream title says. I have a funny feeling that this flight controller might have just exploded. It's not looking great. There's this big burn mark on the side of the damn thing, and oh yeah, look at that. One of the pins blew up. So this isn't going to be much of a troubleshoot because the flight controller went. I wonder if it took anything with it. So the question becomes, why did the flight controller go? Did I feed it? And one of the ways that we can easily check that is by plugging it into USB. And hopefully this doesn't blow up the computer. I think it actually could. It didn't. Oh, so that's interesting. So I plugged it into USB, right? The flight controller is not coming on, but the receiver is coming on. So the flight controller is still passing power, which is interesting. But the F4 chip on the flight controller is blown up, and we're gonna figure out why. So that's a good first. Somebody was asking for. Somebody was saying how they really wanted to see me troubleshoot the Magic Smoke, and that's awesome. That's very true. This is a really good skill to have. Troubleshooting these things in general. It's not easy. There's a lot going on, and most of it is relatively unfamiliar to us, unless we have an electrical engineering background, which I'm assuming most of us don't. So yeah, that's a good first step. Something weird happens. Plugging USB in is going to put a sane amount of current into the flight controller. So now you can see, does the flight controller power up? In this case, it does not. I already saw this burn mark and this blown up pin, so I know that the flight controller is shot and needs to be replaced. It also it then put power to the receiver, which is the way good flight controllers are set up. Good flight controllers are configured so that when you give USB power, it runs power to your receiver because the receivers don't draw really heavily, and it doesn't run power to the VTX because the VTXs do draw very heavily on the power system. And that happens. So we know that we didn't blow the receiver up. We don't know whether or not we blew the VTX up. We don't know if we blew the run cam up. I can't just plug power back in because the ESC will explode again. So basically, I mean, what I really need to do at this point is change the flight controller to get any more info on what else blew up. So this is kind of an uneventful troubleshoot because we very quickly figured out what was going on. We see the burn mark, we see the burned pin on the F4 processor on this flight controller. We see that it passes power, so our receiver is still good, and that's kind of it. We can check if the ESC is still good, so we're going to remove. So this is, I have this wired to pass the VBAT up to the flight controller from the ESC through the plug header here, and so that could be a problem. I could have maybe swapped the plus and minus. We'll check that in a minute. I could have maybe sent positive or VBAT rather into the ground of the flight controller. That could certainly cause problems. But first, let's see if the ESC is okay. So we're going to unplug this, and like I said, this is where my power is coming from. So I've now unplugged power to the flight controller, and thus I've unplugged power to pretty much everything else, because everything else is piggybacking off of the, is being run by the flight controller. I think I might have the split being powered off of the battery pads on the ESC. So this will potentially tell us if the split is still working. So let me get the smoke stopper just for the sake of it. Grab a battery from over here and let's make sure the battery's charged. Good question, Matt Guy. This is a 100% freestyle. All of my rigs are 100% freestyle, but the Acrobrat frame is kind of very specifically a freestyle frame. I cannot possibly imagine why you would want to race the Acrobrat frame because it was literally created from the ground up to be specifically for freestyle. All right, let's see what happens here. Whoa, that sounds weird. So it might have taken the ESC with it. It might sound weird because it's going through the smoke stopper, but let's try it again. Alright, so nothing's on fire, so that's good. I don't see the split lighting up, although I also don't know if this single board split has LEDs on it. Let's see. Those are capacitors. Yeah, I don't know. Let's plug it in without the smoke stopper and see what happens. See if the awkwardness of the sound of the startup tones changes. Alright, everything clear? Yeah, we're good. Alright, good. So, in theory, the ESC seems to be fine. This is not... I feel like there should be lights on the split somewhere, and I don't see them coming on, which is worrying, because I'm pretty sure I have it powered from the... Oh, no, I don't. I have it Hold on. Where's that power lead going? Yeah, I think I have it powered from the... directly from the ESC pads. So, I don't know how that would cause the split to blow up. But, who the hell knows, right? Let's take some more things apart. Let's get this flight controller off of here. I have another one of these Talons. I have other flight controllers, but they don't have black box. So I'm gonna hold off. You know what? From the big 5-inch crash I took the other day, though, it actually broke that. It broke that flight controller. The mounting holes got broken on it, but the rest of it's okay. So let me grab that real quick. Let's see. All right, so we're gonna do something. We're gonna see if this other Talon blew up. Let me plug it into USB first. See if the power's on. It's always a really good first step when you're messing with flight controllers, trying to figure out what's going on with them. Is just plug them into ESC, see if they come on. Let's take a look. I'm doing this under the desk. Ooh, it does come on. Okay. Oh, cool. Okay, so maybe I guess I didn't blow this flight controller up. It just has a couple of broken holes. So let me... well, I can actually leave it. Since it's not broken, I can just leave it on this and then rebuild this rig. I mean, it's going to be a little janky, but
It's FPV, right?
need to have some jank. Yeah, I don't necessarily want to desolder this completely from this rig just for the acrobat. So I'm going to wait on fixing the... I guess I'll super glue this back together. That's pretty cool. This didn't blow up. Yeah, I'm going to leave this alone. I'm not going to make a bunch of extra work for myself. I'm going to leave this, and then when I rebuild it, I'll have it there. So what I'm going to do is remove this flight controller. We will double check. So if I was to pretend that, because I want to give you guys more of sort of the full troubleshooting. This was way too easy to troubleshoot. So I'm going to pretend that I didn't see this, and yeah, fuck it. I'm just going to tear it apart and talk as much as I can through the process. The ESC is unplugged from the flight controller. Flight controller is no longer getting power or motor signals. That is why you don't get the second set of startup tones. When I plugged this in just now, you got boop boop boop, but you didn't get boop boop, because boop boop is basically the ESC's confirmation that it's talking to a flight controller. Basically, the ESC does the first 3 beeps to tell you, hey, I'm fine, I'm getting power, and then the confirmation beeps are it telling you, hey, I talked to the flight controller through the motor signal wires, and the flight controller is on. It doesn't necessarily say that, hey, everything's fine, I'm going to be able to take off for you, but it says that there is a flight controller in the mix connected somewhat properly. So I want to check to make sure that I didn't build this little connector incorrectly and feed VBAT into the ground of the flight controller. So let's take a look at that. So in order to do so, I'm going to pull up the. I need to pull up the wiring diagram for the Hobby Wing stack. So we want. Wait, do I still have it open in a tab? Maybe. Take a look. I very well might. Oh, here's an update. Oh, wow, we're almost halfway, guys. Holy crap. So here's an update for anybody that's been following along. I need to get to 4,000 watch hours on YouTube here to monetize the channel so that I can have the super chat set up. And 2 weeks ago, we started at 700 hours. Now we're up to 1,653. So we're almost halfway, guys. You are all awesome. 1,653 watch hours in the last 12 months. The majority of which came from just you guys watching these streams. So thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are doing it. You're making it happen, and I love you all for it. I do still have it open. Look at that. All right, so here is the Hobby Wing X-Rotor Nano wiring pinout coming up on the screen to my left. All right, let's get in here so I can even see the plug header down the bottom. There it is. Okay, so it's flipped upside down, and we've got motor, positive, ground. So let's make sure that it's right on the ESC side first. All right, here we go. Let's zoom in a little bit here. How do I zoom? There we go. All right. So from the diagram, signal 1, 2, 3, 4, positive, negative. Good. So we are sending the right things in the right wires of this plug header coming up to the flight controller. That's what we just confirmed. Now I need to look at the flight controller pinout to make sure that I put these wires into the right plugs. Sometimes they silk screen it right here for you on these tiny little FCs. A lot of times there's not enough room for that, and this is one of those scenarios. So let's go over here. We're going to pull up the Talon F4 flight controller manual, and there it is. Okay, great. So Talon F4. We're looking at the pins are on top. Pins are on top. So I had it like this. And let's look at the wiring diagram. So we've got all the way on the left, we've got VBAT, and then ground right next to it, and then RX6 for telemetry, current sensing next to that, and then motor 4321. All right, so we passed the correct VBAT into the correct pin on this guy. So if I didn't have anything else connected and I'd powered this up and it had blown up like this, I would 100% blame it on the flight controller. Blame it on Talon. Although it's not really. Talon's just the name of the products that HeliDirect is making. So I guess ipso facto I would blame it on HeliDirect. But there's a chance that I bridged those pads wrong. There's also a chance that I have something else jacked up. It doesn't bode well that it blew up on the processor here. That's a little weird for the main F4 chip to have been the thing that blew up. So my hunch is this is just a defective flight controller, which happens. For sure that happens. The components in this hobby are not foolproof by any stretch of the imagination. Spudnik says he doesn't think you can get an Acrobrat down to 250 grams. You can if you go with smaller motors and you're very careful with your build. But I don't like the way those smaller motors feel on a 250 gram rig. So my sweet spot for weight on this guy is around 260 to 270. But you can absolutely get them down to 250 for sure. Wow, look at all these questions. Holy hell, you guys are busy. Let me do a little bit more on this guy. before I get lost in the question game, as I tend to. Here's a tip for dealing with these stupid little M2 nuts, is to grab it and spin the quad around it until you break down, like I'm going to soon, and buy a little M2 driver. I gotta do this. Still waiting to do that Amazon order, guys. Still waiting to do it. Alright. So yeah, I'm gonna in a second. I'm gonna pull that. Now you know what? While I'm doing this, I can read through the questions. There we go. So this is me learning. When I'm doing the monotonous stuff like this, I can look up and read the questions. Okay. By the time I figure out where I left off, I'm gonna be done. Sure enough, I just found out where I was left off. Oh, cool. Fraser Steen has a Yi 4K test video. Default settings, no filter, just footage. Awesome. Anybody that wants to see the Yi 4K, head over to Fraser Steen's channel. Show him some love. Maybe subscribe. And he's got your back. Europeans are struggling to get their hands on 4S 550, 650s. That sucks. That's really annoying. Ty K asked if there's a go-to place for motor testing. There kind of isn't. The resources that we have at the moment are Engineer X on YouTube. No space. ENGINEERX. We've got SIE FPV. SIIEE, I believe it is. And then we've got Micromotor Test Lab on Facebook. None of those three have been all that active lately. I haven't seen any testing for any of the newer motors. But that's what we got. If you want to look up some old motors, they got some testing for you. That's kind of it. Daniel Robinson asks, I need to start getting supplies for build. Do you suggest one of the silicone mats or something like a board you're working on? What is that board called? Yeah, I think I saw somebody else say that this is a self-cutting mat. This is actually Get FPVs. They were like blowing them out. I'm like, whatever. Let me grab one. Somebody else sent me a link to a magnetic mat. That would be even better because the little nuts and screws love to roll off this onto the floor and vanish. So I would actually go with a magnetic working mat. But anything works. I used to work on this is a microfiber. I used to like working on a microfiber because when round shit would fall on it, it would just kind of stay. It wouldn't want to roll. The problem with the microfiber is it moves all around, and when solder gets on it, it's gross. And if you touch the soldering iron to it, it catches on fire and burns your house down. So it's got its pluses and minuses. What else do we have? Oh yeah, let me find something else monotonous to do on this, and then I'll read more questions. So up comes the flight controller. My next step is going to be to just troubleshoot the spots where I soldered things to try to figure out what the hell happened, why this thing might have let go. So we're just going to go one by one and make sure we fed the right. Make sure that the wires ended up on the right pads. I wired this thing to be upside down, so I'm just going to kind of flip it very gently here. Always very, 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 very gentle with the micro components. They will just implode on you in a hot second if you don't respect them. So kid gloves for when you're working on micros. Alright, so here we go. Let me pull up the thing in the place, the wiring diagram on my other monitor. Okay. So, got the wiring diagram up. So my USB port is facing upwards. So I want, which one of these wiring diagrams? I want this one, right? F4. Nope, I want this one here. Okay. Alright, so I got it, and I'm going to turn it. I like to turn the ESC in the direction that the diagram is showing, just so that there's less confusion. So, let's see what we got. Bottom right, we've got positive and negative, and if I trace that, that goes to the Pro 32 Micro or Nano, whatever the hell they call it, VTX. So this is what I initially thought that I screwed up. So let's check this. So we've got the positive all the way on the right. What I want to see is that it's 5 volt, and it is. Okay, so that is a 5 volt only pad, and this is a 5 volt only VTX. So in theory, this VTX should be fine, and then I've got the ground right next to it. And now I can already see what I like to do is ground my cameras, the FPV camera, to the same exact ground as the VTX. Think of your for the least possible noise, you want your grounds that have anything to do with the video system to be like a spider. How do I? You want them to spider from a central point. It's the worst job I've ever done explaining this. Basically, anything involved in the video system, put all those grounds in the same spot. So whatever the first one is that you solder up to a pad, put the rest of those on that same pad, and that's going to get you the the cleanest possible video, sharing the grounds. I'm not going to go into why, just do it. There's no reason not to do it. Try to put all of your grounds for your entire video system on the same pad. Maybe that's the battery pad on the ESC. Maybe that's up here on the flight controller. But just get them onto the same ground, and it'll reduce the amount of noise in your entire system. So I've got my FPV camera sharing that ground. That's totally fine. Now I've got green and yellow back here. Let's check the green and yellow, and that's going to the Pro 32's telemetry, smart audio and video in. So just for the sake of double checking, I'll look on the wiring diagram, and yeah, TX4 and VTX-S. So those two guys are on the correct pads. Now we've got another set of red and blacks, and these are the guys that I'm pretty sure are going up to the run cam. So that would explain why the run cam wasn't turning on when I was putting battery power to the to just the ESC. So that actually makes sense. In theory, the run cam is not blown up. So let's make sure I didn't have those reversed or anything like that. And no, I did not. VTX Plus on the left, ground right next to it. And I also need to check that none of these are bridged. I could have maybe bridged one of these, and that would put a ton of voltage through the system. Let me check this little... so these are the 3 little pads that I was telling you guys about that are next to one another for battery voltage and 5 volt. So I do want to check this next. This is, again, how we adjust the amount of voltage that goes to the VTX pads. And this is where the manual for the F4 Talon is not crystal clear. Whereas for the F7 Talon, the new one, it is crystal clear. They very specifically have a little spot that says, if you want X voltage to this pad, do this. Let me check. Oh, what's that? Oh, bread delivery. All right, so let me show you guys. So, here's the pad. Let me do this. Let me do this. Pull on the desktop and no. What's happening? This is not what I want. There we go. And they last opened. There we go. Okay. Better. Okay. So this is the pad here. that I'm referring to. So let's zoom in. There we go. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about here. And here are the assumptions that I made. The assumptions that I made from the experiences that I've had with these pads is that since this says bat 5 volt, what that basically means is if I bridge these two top ones, it's going to give me, make it even bigger for you guys. If I bridge these two top ones, my assumption is that that's going to give me, oh, and you know what, you can actually see it, you can kind of see it on the traces here. But if I bridge these top two, it's going to give me 5 volt to the VTX. If I bridge these two bottom ones, it's going to give me battery voltage to the VTX pads. And the reason I'm assuming that is there really aren't any other pads on a flight controller that you would want to put battery voltage other than the VTX pads. Also, it's right fucking next to them, which we can kind of see with these traces here. So you can see something coming in here to this. So the center pad, right? Because of the fact that we're either bridging the top two or the bottom two, we know that the center pad is the output, right? So the top pad is where 5 volt is coming in, and we don't see a trace coming to that. So it's probably a trace that's buried in the multiple layers of the PCB. Whereas the battery pad, we can see a trace coming into it. It doesn't really mean anything. That's just an interesting thing to note. But look at this, right? So we see the trace coming out of this middle pad. It's going up here to something. It's going up to this chipset here, and then it appears as if it comes out right here. Oh yeah, I forgot I have that thing turned on when I wiggle the mouse. So let me keep it big. So it goes here, up into that, through this chip, and it looks like it comes out here. Come on, there it is. And it comes down, and boom, comes right into that VTX Plus pad. So we can see by this trace that's on the top layer of the board that the output of these two guys is going to this VTX pad. So when I look at mine, let's see which two I bridged. Hopefully I bridged the top two. And I didn't. I bridged the bottom two. So I blew the... No, I'm sorry. I have this... Okay. So I actually don't have this running to the VTX. If you guys remember from a second ago, I have the VTX over here on the unselectable... it says 5 volts, so it is 5 volt. This pad over here that we've just been talking about says VTX. It doesn't say 5 volt VTX, it just says VTX. And that's on purpose because we can use this little jumper here, or whatever the hell it's called, to change that VTX output between 5 volt and VBAT. So what I did, because I had a VTX that was 5 volt, I just put it on this 5 volt pad, which is totally fine. I put it over here, and I knew that I needed a source of VBAT power for the RunCam split. So instead of dealing with the hassle of putting those onto the ESC pads, which can be a little bit noisy because the ESC is hooked directly up to the motors, I put the RunCam split output here, and I bridged these bottom two so that I could send the VBAT voltage to the RunCam split, which is what it wants. So again, it's looking like we're totally fine, unless I bridge these two pads together or something, which is a possibility because of this weird ass setup that they used for these pads, like having it be a through hole but then cutting it in half. There is a chance that I guess I might have bridged them, but we'll check that in a second. So that was what I was just checking for there. That was what I was really worried about, that I bridged that incorrectly, but it looks totally fine. And let me see. So there isn't, so that it looks like that's the only one on this board. I'm checking to see if there's another one of those 3-pad gigolos, whatever the hell they're called. And there's not. Okay, so let's continue to check the rest of the wiring, and then we'll check to make sure nothing's bridged. So, and
this might be boring to those of you that have done a million of these builds, but I think it kind of stands to reason that I'm willing to do this because it's really important to do this. I don't care how many of these you've built, you will always overlook something at some point. And the reason why I get nuts about this right now is if I do this wrong again and blow up another one, I'm going to be pissed. They're only $30. You know, if it was like a fancy $55 or $60 flight controller, you know, it'd be like, well, I don't have the money. But still, I mean, it's just time, right? Like, what's your time worth? So let's keep going. This over here, opposite of the USB port, is going to be some sort of a video in. And no, it's not. It's telemetry. Yellow is telemetry, and that's going down to the ArcSR, so that's good. Here's the video in. Okay, so the video in is on the next side of the board, which is 1, 2, 3 in, 1, 2, 3, cam S, S for signal, so that's good. Let's look at where the FPV. Well, I think actually we're done. I think that's everything. Let me see. Oh no, we still got the receiver ones. Oh, and we still have power for the camera. Okay, so I'm pulling power from the same 5-volt pad as the receiver, which is totally fine. The cameras are not very amp hungry, nor are the receivers. So we've got black, double red, and then green. And looking at the wiring diagram, that's ground, 5-volt, and then S-bus. And S-bus is on green on the ArcSR. So yeah, everything is wired up correctly to this flight controller. The last thing that we need to check is whether, I mean, technically we don't need to check any of this because we know for pretty certain that this flight controller just died. But just for the sake of looking, we're going to check to see if anything was bridged. And I have to do this with a loop because it could be like the tiniest piece of solder. So I'm not going to really be able to bring you guys along for the ride on this one. But basically what we're checking for is little solder blobs, little runs in the solder that could potentially connect a positive to a negative. This side looks totally clean. I'll tell you what, having these pads like this makes it easy to check for bridges, like I'm doing right now, which is kind of nice. All right, that side's totally fine. So now let's check the third side, which is the one I'm most worried about because this is the side that has the VBAT on it. But I'm pretty sure that nothing is bridged. Let's see. Yeah, this is totally fine. Yeah, there's nothing bridged. Everything looks perfectly clean in here. I mean, there's not even something that's like, oh, it might be. It's totally fine. This flight controller just let go. Like I said initially, that main F4 processor being blown up the way that it is, that just doesn't happen. I mean, that means it got power and there was just something internally wrong in here that jumped and it just took full voltage and it got hot enough to like melt the plastic on the top of the chip here, and it blew one of the pins apart on the side here. And I mean that just can't have. Yeah, you could absolutely use a multimeter for this for sure. It's just in this case I just don't need to. But yeah, that would be the right way of doing it. Mr. Tux mentioned in the chat the right way of doing it would be to multimeter all of these pluses, positives, and negatives to make sure there's not continuity. And to do that, you just put it in beep mode, and then you just touch it to each one of these. And if it beeps, that means you bridged it. But I mean, I can see it. If it so, you know, that'll tell you if it's like bridged internally too, like a manufacturing flaw.
I just don't care, to be honest with you. I'm not going to do that because I just don't care. I figured out that I wasn't the cause of this, and out of curiosity, I'm going to look to see if maybe there's a solder ball somewhere. Other than that, in my opinion, my hands are clean. I can, at that point, get in touch with Heli Direct and say, hey, this shit blew up. What's going on? Can you send me a new one, please? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't see anything that's wrong. I mean, when that pin blew up, it like really chomped. That pin got real hot. Let me see something. There is something going on. There's a connection between the pin that blew up and the pin header back here, and it looks like. Yeah, I know, right? It sucks. It looks like what happened is when it got hot, it burned through the top layer of the PCB, but technically, maybe there was a solder ball that made it over there. But if there was, I mean, it would be very obvious. Let's see. Now, this is a manufacturing flaw, so I can see what happened. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that sucks. So, alright, so I learned something today. So when I get these components, I need to start doing this that I'm doing right now and looking at every single one of these before I put power to it. That's a really good idea, and it doesn't take long. Get yourself a loop. Every time you get a 20 by 20 out of the box, look at every single pin on the board to make sure that. So what happened here is when they, I forget what it's called, but it might be called like flow soldering or something. They dip these things, and then the solder sticks to where they want it to stick, and it doesn't stick to where they don't want it to stick. And it looks like when that happened, it bridged one of these. The solder made a little connection between one of the pins on the F4 chip to the second pin on this plug header, which is just a motor signal wire, but you just can't have random connections like that. So yeah, and the reason why I know I didn't do this because I would have been nowhere near this, and it's a solder bridge that goes across it. Like a solder ball will be a ball, and the ball will like sit on two of these pins and bridge them. This ran across, so this isn't a solder ball. I can literally see the line of solder between the back of the pin of this and the pin that goes into the chip. And I mean, I guess it could have gotten so hot that it burned through the whatever was insulating that. But yeah, I can see why this went. Although, is that on purpose? No. Well, let me try something. I turned on the soldering iron. I'm gonna try to get that solder off. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. I can hold it to the cam, Tom, but it is absolutely tiny. And there's almost no chance of me getting the camera to focus on it. But I will try in a second. Let me try first, and then I'll try to correct it. Correcting it's not going to help because it blew up, but I'm just more curious than anything else. And I do want to make absolutely sure that if it was my fault, that I don't email Heli Direct and go, yo, WTF.
So, all right. Yeah, man, this is gonna be tough. Well, that's a good idea, Chapax. So the other Talon that I have is an F7, and it's got a totally different layout. So it probably won't have this bridge, but it's certainly worth looking. All right, well, I almost got it. So there it is. You can see the one that's kind of blown away, and then what I can't show you guys, it's probably not gonna. Yeah, see, as I add more magnification, it comes out of focus. But yeah, there's a little bit of solder connecting that second to last pin to that pin on the F4. And like I said, you can see, so here's the two pins, right? You can see that the solder was pulled across the two. A solder ball would have, I mean, it would look like a ball. It would literally be a ball in between those two. But yeah, this solder pulled across, so I'm assuming that happened when it was dipped, because when it's dipped, the solder flows across the board. So yeah, that sucks. I can't be absolutely 1000% sure that I didn't somehow magically do that, but here's the thing, right? There's nothing in here. There's absolutely no reason for me to have the tip of my iron in there to pull that solder across. So yeah, I really can't see. Literally, the only way that this could have been my fault is if a solder ball came off and hit those two and somehow spread out and like it would have had to have turned from a ball to a straight line. And I've done a lot of soldering and I've never seen that happen. Mainly because in order for it to move like that, there would need to be a heat source. Solder is really that solder travels towards heat. So basically, both of those components, I guess, would have needed to be hot. It just didn't happen. That's just not what happened, guys. I don't know how else to try to throw myself under the bus with that and take responsibility for this failing. This was just a manufacturing defect, which is pretty rare on top-end gear, and I've had a bunch of these Talons and I've not had an issue yet, so not at all a dig on Talon. These boards have been bulletproof for a lot of people. This is just something that happens every so often. It sucks, but it's the reality of us buying gear that's not, not paying $100 for a flight controller. Look at Flyduino gear. The pricing on Flyduino gear is high because it's incredibly well made. You might think that their gear is priced too expensive. It's not. I can tell you that from experience of having built it. It is priced appropriately for the quality of their chipsets and of the work that they're doing on those. They're gorgeous. If you ever get a chance to do a Flyduino build, or even just like finger bang the some of their components, definitely do it because they are like a work of art. They are so pretty. They use smaller components. They pack them in nice and tight, which they can get away with because they're just doing a higher quality of work. And when we buy a flight controller for $32, like this one, it's just unrealistic to expect that same quality. So you're going to have stuff like this happen every once in a while. But what's cool is most of these retailers will stand behind them. Like I can all but guarantee that I shoot HeliDirect or wherever I bought this from. There's a chance I got this from Pyrodrone, but wherever I bought it from, they will most likely send me another one because they realize that, and I assume, the way it works in other businesses, they can send the failed components back to the manufacturer for some sort of a refund. So yeah, now that I've troubleshot it, I can disassemble it. So that is going to be the end of the troubleshoot. What questions do you guys have? I have not looked at the chat in a while, So I'm going to scroll up and do my best to answer questions while desoldering this flight controller to get it ready for the replacement. Daniel Robinson. Oh, that's where I left off. Okay, good. License to Drive says, Ciati, judging by the type of music you play in your videos, I think you really might like the YouTube channel called... How do you say that? Circle? Called Circle. I'm gonna look that up right now. It's funny, the music in the music in my edits. I do listen to it outside of editing in order to find more. But I'm more of a, like, when I'm listening to music for pleasure on my home theater in the other room right over there, or albums on. I got into home theater a long time ago. I have a really nice set of speakers, really nice receiver, and then I got into vinyl a few years ago. So I have a half decent little. I have a tight vinyl collection. I try to keep it from getting out of control. So like if I'm listening to, I don't have any records with any of the music that's in my edits. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that when I'm listening to music for fun, it's more classic rock, acoustic kind of stuff rather than dance music. But dance music fits really well with what we're doing. The way that we fly is like a dance. So I really like the way that dance music feels in our edits. So that's what I go with. I will absolutely check Circle out because I'm always looking for new stuff. Most recent Circle, 2 German DJs playing a set, broadcast live, Norwegian Mountain. Oh my god, dude, that's awesome. Thanks for the for that one, License to Drive. I will check them out for sure. Always looking for new fun stuff. Thanks, Fraser Steen, for throwing the links to, or throwing the names of Engineer X and Sai. And yeah, Ethan Bayer is Micromotor Test Lab. Yep. All up weight. Matt Guy asks, what do I think the all up weight on this is going to be? With this is the 850, but the 650 looks just like it. With the 650, it was 270 something, 274 maybe. I have some extraneous things on this, like a second camera. You could certainly build this to be a little bit lighter. If you didn't have an individual FPV camera, you'd save like 5 or 6 grams there. You'd save some more weight by not having to run these TPU things. You could probably shed almost 10 grams pretty easily off of this. But with a motor like this, this is a bigger motor, bigger than 1407. With a motor this big, it's going to be hard to keep it below 250. I will admit that for certain. You'd have to really work hard. Actually, I don't know if you'd be able to do it. I don't know if you can build an Acrobat less than 250 if you're going to put big motors on it. And get HD. That's the big thing. If you don't care about HD, you're going to be totally fine because you'll skip this entire board up front. But if you want HD on it, 250 is going to be tough. You're going to have to go with smaller motors, which is fine. I mean, it's you're just not going to have it's not going to fly like a 5-inch. It's not going to have that humongous pad. It's not going to have that crazy 10-to-1 power to weight ratio. But to be honest, that's a big. I mean, 10-to-1. That's a lot, man. Like, think about that in car terms. No, we can't because we're talking about grams to grams. Actually, I wonder if there's like a horsepower to grams of thrust conversion. I would love to know what the equivalent. So, like in cars, when we talk about power to weight ratio, it's horsepower to pounds usually. I would love if we could convert it and figure out what the power to weight ratio is on a car. I bet you it's very, very low. But we would need to convert horsepower to grams of thrust. I don't know how the hell we'd do that. And then we would need to convert pounds into grams, which would be easy. But yeah, I wonder if there's like a horsepower to thrust
comparison. There probably isn't because it depends on depends on the prop and shit like that. Maybe there's like a maximum possible thrust as per. I don't know. I don't know. What do I know, guys? I'm just a wannabe race car driver, building robots. Yeah. Get out of there. Get out of there. Doing this very haphazardly. Just because I want to rush through it. And for the new folks, if you had to do something like this, take pictures with your phone of everything, and that way you'll know where all the wires go. I did that for a long, long time. Just like everything I did, I was, oh, here's a ground pad, so it's going to be a dick. Anything I was working on, I would take a bunch of pictures before I started tearing anything apart, and then when I had to put it back together, I could just refer back, and I would know where all the wires should go. So there we go. Here's one blown up flight controller. Oh yeah, I did want to look. I did want to try to unbridge those pads. I'm going to do that with the loop. Let me just try to do that real quick. Oh, I'm sleepy. Alright, let's see. Yeah, so I was able to unbridge it. So, like, for example, right? If I had inspected this board with the little 5x loop here prior to powering it on, I would have seen, potentially, I might have seen the bridged connection here, and yeah, I could have fixed it. Yeah, I was able just now to pull that solder bridge apart. But I don't know. Whatever. I didn't inspect it perfectly. I don't think that we should have to inspect it like that. Is it a good idea? Absolutely. But I'll say this. I'm going to email whoever I bought this from and explain the situation. And if they say, oh, well, you should have inspected it before, we're not going to hook you up, I'll say, okay. I feel like that's within their right to say. I won't be thrilled about it, but I don't know. I think that's, yeah. What do you guys think? I'm sure that I won't get that answer, but it's actually an interesting philosophical question. Should we be required, since we're buying the components like this, right? Like you go buy a TV and this happens. It's, there's no expectation that you have to tear a TV apart to inspect everything. Excuse me. But since we're buying the stuff like this, is it reasonable for a manufacturer or a reseller to expect you to visibly inspect it? I know the answer is no, but I don't know. What do you guys think? You guys know what I'm saying. Everything else is fine on here. Is that in any way, shape, or form a reasonable request? I'm going to scroll down to see if anybody has any thoughts, and then I'm going to scroll back up on the chat to answer some more of the questions, because we're pretty much done with this troubleshoot. I could dive into a 5-inch build, although it's getting late. We started at 3, 4, 5. Oh wow, it's been a while. All right, so yeah, let's talk a little bit. I'll answer the rest of these questions, and then we'll wrap this one up. And tomorrow, after Joshua's stream, I'm going to build a 5-inch. So if anybody wants to see a scratch 5-inch build or like the first 10 minutes of it before a ton of awesome questions come in, and we just talk the rest of the stream. Come on over tomorrow it will be 10 o'clock Eastern U.S. time. So, like, for example, it's 5:43 p.m. here now. So 10 o'clock Eastern America time, Eastern Standard Time, tomorrow night, I will ride Joshua's coattails yet again and do a stream for a couple hours. And we will have fun. And I'm doing this on cam because I know a lot of people have problems with these little grommets. And I like to do it with these little silly little dental tweezers. And there it is. So now this goes into the shit pile of blown up mini quad components. Alright, so let's do this. Let me point this camera at my stupid face since we're done on the bench, and we will read through some comments, and then we will wrap it up. Actually, let me show you guys this. Speaking of, here's the broken, blown up component pile. And keep in mind, there are no prototypes in there. I've never helped with prototype testing on any electronics. So these are all things that have been installed and blew up from either taking a really hard slam or me screwing up, mostly from slams, but there are some things in there that were blown up from early on mistakes when I first started building, which is totally natural, and like that happens, and that's a part of this hobby. It's a part of any hobbies involving making stuff, really. So yeah, get used to it, because it's gonna happen for the entire time that you're into FPV. So let's do some reading. This is weird. You guys are looking at my ear. Alright, I'll do this. Oh wait, no. I have the other mount. Here we go. You guys can look up my nose. Stand by. This will be way better. This will be much less awkward. This is why I point the camera at my hands, because it's just inherently awkward to talk to my phone. To talk at my phone. Oh god, I almost fell. Come on. I'm all wrapped up, guys. Alright. There we go. Let me know if the volume is okay, because I am moving the camera. There. Ooh, that's pretty slick. Okay. That's a slick little setup. All right, good deal. So now I'm looking at the monitor. So just somebody check me on the... yeah, I know, license to drive. Check me on my levels. If I need to talk louder, I will. So let's go up to where I left off on the questions. And we'll rip through those. And then we'll be out of here. So, the most recent one was still feeling cutting mat, Engineer X. Here we go. Good. Do you have any line of sight videos? Asks Daniel Robinson. I do not. My first quadcopter was line of sight only. But once I started flying FPV, that was the end of that. Acrobat was, Spudnik says, Acrobat was designed to be a 3-inch that feels like a 5-inch. You need some weight to throw around to vault over treetops. Absolutely. That's one of the cool things about the heavier micros, is they actually do get a bunch of throwback, which is pretty slick. All right. Record this in flight. After the build, Mac Guy says, oh yeah, Mac Guy for sure.
I will absolutely get some footage of this up once I swap the flight controller out. I'm actually dying to do so that I can send it to T-Motor for them to see. Since these are prototypes that they were kind enough to send to me. My God, do I need a haircut. If I had Super Chats on, you guys would Super Chat me for a haircut so you didn't have to look at this absolute insanity anymore. But I'm working from home right now, so I don't get haircuts when I'm at home. When I'm unemployed or working from home, I just tend to not get haircuts. Okay. What else? Rest in flight. Mr. Tux bought a silicone soldering mat that has a magnetic part on top, except that Banggood sent me the wrong one. Magnetic part is even smaller than the one I ordered. That stinks. Yeah, if I'm going to get a magnetic mat, the whole mat's going to have to be magnetic, because if it's only a part of it, that'll never be where I drop stuff, so it'll be pointless. Guillermo is here. What's up, Guillermo? How are ya? License to Drive likes the 45x30 silicone work mat from Banggood. Very nice to use. You can clear enough parts off of it. Very cool. Okay, here's where Ty K was mentioning the multimeter. Great comment. Absolutely right. Using a multimeter is best. Put it in beep mode. You can find those bridges. I guess it would have found this. Yeah. I guess it would have found this if I'd run... No, it wouldn't have. Well, I don't know. I'm not that good with electrical stuff, so maybe it would have found it, maybe not. What else do we have here? Send the VOD of the stream as proof that you did nothing wrong. Are the pins in the harness connect? Absolutely, Naked Pilot. That was the first thing or the second thing that I checked. It was actually it's strange. It was a motor signal pin that the F4 chip pin was bridged to. Like, I wouldn't think that would cause a problem, but who the hell knows? God knows what kind of voltage is running through any one of those pins, and or how much voltage any one of those pins can take, right? Even if it's 0.1 volt on that motor signal wire, that might be too much for that part of the F4 processor to deal with. Okay. Who did you buy that from? Banggood isn't much help when things go wrong. Absolutely, Mackeye. That is the main reason why I stopped ordering from Banggood, actually. It's really nice to have support on this stuff, and I also do prefer to support U.S. manufacturers. So I do not order from Banggood anymore unless I absolutely have to get something that only they sell, like the Eachine VTX 03S. But other than that, it is Pyrodrone, Rotor Riot, Race Day Quads, Heli Direct, or like if there's something specific that I need to get that only one website has, I'll grab it from there. But yeah, I really prefer to order from Rotor Riot and Pyrodrone primarily. More bread, thank you. Can you hold it to the cam? Okay, right, yeah, we did that. Okay, good. Always end up bending pins. Yep, that is one of the problems with those pin headers. I don't like them either. Tom Loreth works for an electronics company that does SMD PCBs. Very cool. License to Drive has two really good pocket magnifiers, 3x, 4.5, 6, and 9. That's slick. 9 would be really nice. This 5 that I have is good most of the time, but every so often it would be nice to have a little bit more. I will say this magnifying work light that I've got here, I ordered the one with a 2x magnifying panel, and it is useless. If you get one of these, which I suggest you do, these are amazingly helpful, having a nice bright light that you can move all around like this. It also works like this as an actual like studio light in some cases, as a ring light basically. Really, really handy to have. They're like $50-$60 on Amazon. But if you get it, make sure you get one of these with a 5x. The 2x just doesn't magnify enough to really do anything. So yeah, get a 5x. You probably won't use it much anyway, but yeah, if it was a 5x, I would actually use it, and I would try to figure out a way to hold the camera up above it to get it to focus down, which would be cool. So if I ever break this one or whatever, somebody wants to buy this one as a 2x, I'll get one of the 5x's. All right, moving on. Check your other town to see if there's a bridge. That's right, I wanted to do that. There is not. There's no plug header. The plug header is not right next to it, so I can't test it. I don't have any other. This was the only F4 town that I had. Oh, can you guys see the cat? Nope. There's a kitten. There he is. Be a bad boy. Be a bad boy, bad Photoshop. All right. Let's do it. Michael Benjamin could sort of see the spot. Thanks for coming by, man. Tom Loreth. Yeah, the bridge was from that pin on the plug header directly to one of the pins on the F4 processor. Oh, that's interesting. Tom says he's seen that happen if it's on the chips pin. Huh, okay. Tom, what do you think? Oh, here we go. Those PCBs are not dipped. So if they're not dipped, it's going to be hard for you to type the explanation. That's really bad QC, he says. Ugh, that's a shame. Maybe that's why they went from the F4 to the F7, because the F7s have been bulletproof so far. But at the same time, I don't think we get good quality control on any of our stuff. So, yeah, is what it is. Good look over new gear. Seems like something I'll be doing more. Yeah, just in case. Michael Benjamin says it's good to look over on new gear. It'll be something that he's doing more of. Yeah, me too. For sure. When I get new gear out, I'm going to start taking it out of the package, and first thing I'll do is grab the loop and just look at everything. Because what's it going to take? 60 seconds to just check that? And it's also not a bad idea to just look at these chipsets, see what we find. I mean, we might find something in there that's interesting that, I don't know. Looking for problems is one thing. Just learning what these different chips look like, and oh, what's that box? Maybe that's a MOSFET. Oh, I saw it. I saw that same box only on another ESC. It must be a MOSFET. You know, just trying to learn what the hell are on these magical mystery boards is not a bad idea. So I will be doing that myself as well. Okay. Chatback says, just remove it. Usually power pad are on the corner of the chip. Maybe nothing blew up, just signal pad messed up. Yeah, we plugged it in through USB, and the flight controller won't power up. There's like a spot where it blew up. Like it hit. It got some voltage in there and blew that chip up. It's toast. Tom Loreth, any chance you got a PCB with such a bridge is extremely low? Okay, the chance you got a PCB with such a bridge is extremely low. Okay, gotcha. Michael Benjamin loves dubstep on his edits. Very cool. Spudnik, lo-fi hip-hop goes well. Yeah, very true. With DVR, in his opinion. EDM with HD flight footage also goes well together, for sure. Daniel Robinson, it might just be me, but I like listening to the sound of the quad and FPV videos. Very good point, Daniel. So, Schizo and I were actually talking about this recently. We will, if there are certain edits where that works and there's certain edits where that doesn't, typically what we were talking about is like if it's a really action-packed kind of raunchy high energy, let's say high energy kind of flight and or song, putting the prop sound in can be really cool. If it's more of a gentle, smooth, kind of like the way Schizo flies, right? Then taking the prop noise completely out tends to work better. But it really depends on the footage, depends on the location, the pilot, all that stuff. So I put it on a separate track in Premiere, and I'll just turn it off and turn it on. and just see what it's like with it, see what it's like without it, and whichever I like, I go that direction. How much flight time, Prop Pirate asks, how much flight time did you get out of that before it went bad? I didn't. I plugged it in for the first time and it blew up immediately. License to Drive, been into electric music since the 80s, Tangerine Dream to Daft Punk and beyond. Very cool, man. Very, very cool. Feel for the fellow pilots stuck on 250 grams or less, says Michael. Pretty soon, we're getting there. I don't have one within arm's reach, but we're getting to the point where a sub 250 gram rig can be real good for freestyle. Stay tuned here and or over on Patreon as I try my best to perfect that and get us something that will easily be below 250 grams, but give us all the flight performance of a 5-inch rig. License to Drive is talking to Daniel. Okay. Spudnik, if you watch drone races with commentary, put on some post-rock or progressive rock. That's a cool idea. I dig that. License to Drive's old Samsung S2 phone has a ridiculous amount of close-up electronics photos I've taken for reference. Still use it as a camera. Nice. You can also get, if you really want to do that, there's a little, what did I do with it? There's a little rubber band macro lens that you can get off of eBay, which is pretty slick. So slick, in fact, that I lost it. No, it's in here. I was just using it. I don't know. It's a little rubber band with a little macro lens on it, and you stretch it around your camera. You put the macro lens over your lens on the camera, and it will allow your camera to focus on stuff that's like this close. So for taking pictures of electronics, it really, really, really works well. Yeah, that's something you can find on Amazon, I'm sure. Because that's where I got it. What else? Check if it works with USB. Oh, that's interesting. Now that I removed that bridge, well, I think I did this. I think I plugged it into USB after I moved that bridge, but just in case I didn't, that's a good idea. And I'm just doing it off camera. Nope, no power. So it is shot to shit. All right, what else do we have? Where are we at? Ooh, boy. Houseblog says, I think most companies will take care of you unless you're a repeat offender. Yeah, that's a good point. Don't expect to get a second and a third and a fourth one in a row. They're going to start to blame your soldering. All right. Come on. There it is. Okay. The scroll really sucks on YouTube's chat. Such bridges shouldn't happen with the equipment those companies have. If this happens in my company, there was zero error strategy right away. Okay, and production stops. Gotcha. Well, never know. Maybe that's why they stopped production on the F4s and went to F5s. I don't know. Mr. Tux doesn't think it's reasonable to expect the customer to do most basic QA, which is a visual inspection, but personally I will always take close-up photos and check that works plugged to USB. Yeah, it's a good idea. This... come to think of it, this did work through you. So that's interesting. That's a really good point. Okay. So, Tux, you just made me realize that this was fine powered on USB because I had to do all the setup. I had it plugged into USB for, a half an hour to get all the setup done in beta flight. So, yeah, this flight controller was totally fine, which makes sense, right? Because the problem was with the motor signal wire, which doesn't come into play when it's just being powered through USB. So yeah, that actually makes total sense. So yeah, I mean, I guess looking forward, right, trying to improve our process with these things, the lessons learned are that when we get these things out of the bag, we should get the loop up to our eye and just inspect them for any bridges. We want to power them by USB first, kind of no reason not to. We kind of have to because we have to set them up. So I mean, I don't think we need to talk about that or think about that rather. And then use a smoke stopper. So if I used a smoke stopper, who knows what would have happened? Maybe it would have caught it. Maybe it was still blown up. But yeah, so I guess the only thing we really learned is to visually inspect these things when we take them out of the package. Because I'm far too lazy to multimeter every single point on this, and I don't know if a multimeter would have caught this. I think it would have though. I'm not doing it. If you want to be safe, multimeter every single positive and negative lead on the build before you plug it into full voltage the first time. I'm not doing it. I've only had this happen once. Yeah. All right. And the visual inspection would have caught it. So, license to drive is consumers. The answer is no. We shouldn't have to check if there's issues before the products. Despite the DIY nature of this hobby. Yeah, I agree. Easier for me to prove that it isn't my fault that the flight controller is broken. It's manufacturing fault. True talk. Such faults in the way of the customer. Yep. All right. Cover my back. Try to record opening the package. Trust these parts completely. That's interesting, Matt guy. That's a good idea too. Bridges do happen. Tom says. House blog, that's quite a collection, I know. I've built quite a few. Considering the markup and taxes, your time, yeah, I think they should replace it, especially if the night's your fault. I'm sure that they will. License to Drive said, Kebab FEB did say on Facebook yesterday that you can literally demolish anything. Yeah, I make it a point to fly beyond my current skill level because that is how I improve the quickest. This particular crash was not my fault. It was an ESC that desynced for no good reason in the middle of a flight and slammed on the concrete. But if I'd flown one more battery, I would have slammed it. Probably not this hard, but I would have slammed it for sure. So that's if you're looking to get really good, you have to crash. You have to crash a lot because when you're crashing, that means you're pushing yourself, and when you're pushing yourself, you're going to get better. If you're not crashing, you're not learning quickly. You're learning. You're getting stick timed for sure. But if you want to learn quickly and get good quickly to keep up with all the other guys, all the other pro pilots that are continuing to improve, you got to be willing to crash a lot. Corey Cricket is a perfect example of this. He improved very, very quickly, and he's replaced, I think at last count, it was over 40 GoPro Hero 7s. Don't quote me on that, but it's a lot. And, it's $50 per when you renew that warranty. But the guy got really good, really fast, and now he's a Rotoride team pilot. So it's a perfect example. Like, if you want to get really good as a pilot, you have to be willing to throw the quad into situations where on the fly you're going to have to figure out how the hell to get out of it. And there's going to be a good percentage of the time that you wreck, and you wreck hard. And as you get better, you wreck harder because you're going harder, you're going faster, you're going, through smaller gaps. You're flying around harder obstacles, and the one Cisco building, the big brown building with all the cubes on top that you can go in, and the big parking lot. Some of that stuff is like marble. So like some of the crashes you'll have there, it's like ridiculous. I broke 4 motor bells there within 3 batteries. I mean, it's just crazy, but the spot is amazing. So it's kind of one of those things. If you want to get really good, be prepared to crash a lot. All right. Audio is fine. Good. Looking for Mac Guy is looking for 2-inch frames apart from toothpick frames, and are designed for 1104.5 motors. I only really have one 2-inch frame recommendation right now, which is the Driblet, which is out of stock in a bunch of places, but just you'll find it. It's in stock somewhere. I forget where. I don't really have any other 2-inch frame recommendations right now. Maybe somebody else does. But I know that the Driblet is a good one. It's tough. Drew did a good job on the design, and you can also fit a third board in there, so you can put like a turtle or Gen 1 split in, which is all you'd really want. I don't think you would want 4 boards in a 2-inch rig. It's just too heavy. So, all There's that. Mongo's back. Good to have you back. Wonder if short protection could be built in without a lot of compromise. I think short protection is built in, but just in certain spots. Having this bridge going directly to that F4 processor pin, I don't know if short protection you'd be able to do it like that. Tom only buys stuff in the U.S., but Tom would love to only buy stuff in the U.S., but customs are insane getting it sent to Austria. Oh, okay. So Banggood is the only cheap source. I've heard that before. Yeah, people around the country just won't have, not country, people around the world just won't have like a local shop that they can source from. So they have, and not all shops ship all over the world. So your options become very limited. So Banggood is a great option. Well, the only option for a lot of folks. But for us U.S. people, we are very, very spoiled to have a lot of really good sources within the U.S. To get most of our parts from. Just bought the Ishin VTX off Amazon. Going to upgrade the Tiny Hawk with it. Going to be the first mod, says Prop Pilot. Very cool. Pirate, rather. Daniel Robinson, have you ever used spacers under the motors to get your props above the canopy so that you can use bigger props? Daniel Robinson, no, because the problem you'll run into is that the front and rear props will start to hit each other, and they'll be going in the opposite direction, so it won't be like a friendly... Wait a second, will they? In, props in, that goes out. Props in. Oh, no, they wouldn't. It would be a friendly interaction until one of them started spinning faster than the other one, and then they would and get all angry. So yeah, keep the props down as low as you can on the arm. Boosting them up is going to probably lead to problems. If vibration, off the top of my head, vibration problems are going to get worse because you're going to create a longer lever. The motor's going to be taller. It's going to be really hard on durability wise. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Wow, I keep getting lost in the chat. Wait. Here we go. Oh, nope, never mind. Houseblog. Oh, cool. Houseblog does SMD board prototyping and has a nice HDMI digital inspection microscope for assembling. Man, that must be nice. Thing is coming real handy for the hobby stuff as well. That's slick. Mac Guy, something's going to need a better suggestion, but thought throw this out there. King Kong ET100. Oh, cool. Yeah, the King Kong stuff is good. King Kong stuff is good. They used to make the Leader, I believe, and the Leader was a really good value. There's probably better stuff now, but yeah. Okay. Oh, here's the answer to my question from a while ago. Tom Lorette says, those PCBs, the solder paste. Right, okay. These PCBs get solder paste applied to the pads using a mask and then some sort of a printer after that. The components get placed with nozzles on the boards up to around 25k per hour. Holy crap. Okay, all right, so that makes sense. So Tom, what do you think? So you think when the solder paste... You think the solder paste got applied a little bit sloppily, and it bridged that, and then that's what caused that? Just out of curiosity. Mr. Tuck says Steele's recent video was super trippy and amazing. He took out all the sounds and added TV, car crickets, etc. sounds back in. Yeah, Steele did a really good job with that. It's funny, like his way of doing it for real with the real sounds, that is exactly how I approach all, when possible, but all of sort of the filmmaking. I trying to replace real sound, real video with something fake or CGI or sound effects is so hard to get perfect. So unless you're really good or willing to spend a ton of time on it, you're never going to get it quite right. I'm of the mind I would much rather do it the right way, try to collect the real, in this case, what we're talking about here, the real audio, exactly like Steele did. That's going to leave you with a better result. And his video is like such a great example of that. So yeah, if you can do it real, another way to put that is do it in camera. Don't just fix everything in post. I try to fix nothing in post, if at all possible, because I would rather be in real life doing it and troubleshooting the problem in real life rather than sitting here for hours troubleshooting it in Premiere, Photoshop, whatever I'm working in. So yeah, really good point, Mr. Tux, and that was a super cool house tour video. Tom Loreth, next time, oh wait, no, not next time. Next, they get into a quite hot oven which melts the solder paste. Okay, and there lies the problem. If you just got a bit too much paste on. Okay, so I asked a question that he'd already answered. Very cool. Okay, so yeah, in theory, they got a little bit too much solder paste on it. When it went into the oven, it bridged that connection, and that's what it looked like. It was a like I was saying before, it was 2 pins, and then it was a straight line of solder in between the two. And I just can't imagine that ever being a solder ball. License to Drive, it likes listening to the quad sounds when flying as it helps him judge how hard, soft I'm pushing. Me too, except when it gets too far and the sound lags behind the FPV feed. Yeah, I like that though, because that tells me I'm too goddamn far. I need to come back. Although now I'm going to Crossfire, so at that point I won't be too far. I'll just need to be careful and pay more attention. Really, Tom Loreth, but normally the next step is the optical inspection, which normally filters out such bridges. Yeah. License to Drive, Blue tacks his pocket magnifier to his phone for close-ups. There you go. That's a good idea. Michael has been begging for a KISS 20x20 stack. I love my micro. I have mentioned that to Steele, and it was a little while ago, though. It was before some of the hotness. It didn't sound like there was much of a chance of it. Flyduino is a small company trying to do a lot. But I will ask him again next time I talk to him. I'll probably talk to him this week some point, so I'll ask him if he knows anything. And then I won't be able to tell you guys anyway, but I'll know, so that'll be good. Even cheap PCB producers are testing PCBs with flying probes these days before the components get added. Flying probes, that sounds cool. I have no idea what that is, but it sounds slick. Mackeye asks Michael Benjamin, what's app good about KISS FCs? What's so good about KISS FCs? They're just better made. They're just better built. Better QC, smaller components, tighter tolerances. Just people, they can charge more money so they can spend more time. Well, they do charge more money so they can spend more time on it. And time, to some extent, equals quality. So yeah, pretty straightforward. You get what you pay for. Michael Benjamin, Maga, flywheel built, little no tuning, having to update all the time. I agree with some of those things. The tuning is, I think Betaflight is better in terms of tuning. Even on like stock tunes, I think the Betaflight stock tune flies better than the KISS stock tune. Just one guy's opinion. But there's no questioning that the quality of Flyduino's components is the best in the game. So take that for what it's worth. All right, we're going to wrap it up here in a minute. Coming towards the bottom of the chat. License to Drive flew 9 packs on his Hawk 5 today. Didn't break 1 prop. 8 more today. Replaced 3 props. Or no, flew 9 yesterday. Didn't break 8 today. Replaced 3. I know it could get better faster if I flew hard all the time, but I hate crashing. So therein lies the rub of pushing yourself really hard. When you start crashing hard, you break more shit, which is more time to repair, more money to replace components. So it's a real balancing act. There's a super balancing act in this hobby of how much am I willing to repair, how much am I willing to spend, how good do I want to get, how good should I get. Like if I don't have any plans of doing anything with this hobby long term, does it really matter if I'm good? Like what's the point? Just go have fun. Just make sure you're having fun. If you're a terrible pilot but you have so much fun when you go out, and you don't want to do anything long term with this hobby, then that's great. I mean that's ideal, right? So there's a million things to balance in this hobby. Becoming a good pilot, it's fun. It's fun for me. I'll say that it was something that I've had a really good time doing, but it's not for everybody. There's no, it's just like bragging rights, right, to people that you barely know on the internet. So be realistic about it. Don't don't ever think like if you're not one of the top pilots that you're like a nobody. Everybody has something to give to this hobby. Maybe you're really good at building. Maybe you're really good at troubleshooting. Maybe you're totally just in it to have fun. And you're just a cool person. I mean, we're all cool people. But no wrong answers. Not being the best pilot in the world doesn't mean shit, if I'm honest. Just having fun in this hobby, meeting cool people, group thinking some of this stuff to make flying robots that just teleport our eyeballs into places that we could never go 4 years ago, right? I mean, that in itself is enough of a reason for us all to kind of stay in this. So don't kill yourself thinking that you need to get good unless you really want to. What else do we have here? All right, we're getting there. Almost there. Flying probes is a multimeter in beep mode of resistance testing mode, but the probes are attached to the plotter. Oh, that's so cool. That makes so much sense and is like the easiest thing ever to do. Slick. I wonder if they could tie that into the calibration process they do on those plotters too. Speaking of sound out of sync, says the House blog, if the audio being out of sync with the video on the HDO DVR recordings common, it is because of dropped frames. It gets worse and worse the longer the recording gets. Yeah, because the audio recording doesn't record in frames. I don't think. I mean, not in the same way that video does. But yeah, video will drop a frame and the audio will just keep going, and then video will drop another frame and the audio will keep going, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So yeah, I've every DVR edit I've ever done, I just pull the audio completely out of it. House blog flame drop problem comes into play. All right, license to drive beat me to the punch on that one. All right, is there a theory on how long KISS, ESCs, and DC? Well, in terms of how long ESCs last, I don't think they have a half-life, really, until they start to get abused. One of the things that abuses them the worst is turtle mode. The worst thing you can possibly do to an electric motor, an electrical system with an electric motor, is to lock the motor up and then to try to spin it. The amp draw goes nuts. So when we're turtle moding and we flip over, and this is why it's really important to look and only trigger the props that are up. If we trigger these props that are down against the ground, that's going to put a ton of stress into those MOSFETs on those channels of the ESC. Even if we only trigger these ones that are facing upwards, if there's grass or something wrapped around them, it's going to do the same thing. So I was talking to Ryan Harrell at one point of Mini Quad Test Bench, and he said something super interesting, which was that ESCs only really started blowing up once turtle mode was introduced. And I think there's more validity to that than it sounds like a simple statement, but I think that there's a lot of validity to that. So yeah, I get 6 months after the ESC typically, but it depends. I mean, you can get a really big crash and just blow one up because a chip flew off of it. But if you don't abuse an ESC, it should last a long, long time, but maybe forever. There's a couple more, a couple electrical guys in here that are a lot smarter than me. Maybe they'll chime in. House Blah, there we go. Okay. AZ Drone Dude, you're welcome, man. Thanks for coming by. Bottom line is have fun, says Michael. Absolutely. License to drive. Okay, talking to House Blog. Mac Guy, thank you so much for answering these questions. Awesome, man. Yeah, glad to have you. You're always welcome here. Any questions you've got, I'll try my best. House Blog is going to run an update. Mr. Tux, during the stream, he did 40 minutes of liftoff, went from 38 to 36 seconds on some random track. Very cool. Prop Pirate went to the Tiny Hawk so he can push himself to beat the quad up and keep flying. That's why I flew micros for so long. Micros crash really, really, really well. The only problem with them is they're annoying to repair. But for me, it was definitely well worth it to be able to crash the hell out of micros, push myself like crazy with the micros and on the sim, and just improve as a pilot. There is also a point of piloting skill where you can stop crashing. There is a point where you become so confident that if you say, I'm not going to crash, you will not crash. You can catch the horizon in any orientation and always find your way back up, and you have enough of kind of situational awareness to stay far enough away from objects to not ram them. So there is a point where you will absolutely be able to go out and fly 100 batteries and not crash on a single one of them unless there's an equipment failure. And the equipment only really starts to fail when you're crashing hard. The equipment fails when it gets beat to hell. So for me, other than this FC blowing up the second that I plugged it in, if I have an ESC fail, I can't complain because I've been slamming the shit out of that rig into concrete for a while. So like 99% of the time when gear fails on me, it's like, all right, I'm surprised it didn't fail sooner than that. So keep that in mind too. Daniel Robinson says, ESC on Babyhawk R Pro 2.5 is trashed. Battery ripped the ground plates off. Hard time to find the 20 amp ESC that was on it. Any suggestions? ESC will be fine to use. You should be able to use any ESC as long as Emacs didn't do some weird pin layout. I would contact Emacs. They have customer service folks. Contact them. Ask them if they have that ESC floating around. Maybe they'll even hook you up. You never know. But yeah, as long as there's not some wacky pin setup, Daniel, you should be able to use any old ESC. The connection between an ESC and a flight controller is power, ground, signal 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's really all they need. Some of them will run telemetry to a UART to get ESC telemetry, not necessary. Some of them will run current sensing so that to read the actual amp draw directly off the ESC. Again, not essential. All you need is motor 1, 2, 3, 4, signal wires, power, and ground. All right. I've been stretching the audio in Premiere to match it up, says Houseplug. Yeah, that'll work. That'll totally work. License to drive Prop Pirate crashed the hell out of my King Kong ET100. Still flies despite very worn bearings. Very cool. So there we go. King Kong ET100, a good durable choice according to License to Drive. Michael Benjamin, people who say crashing is progress is silly to me. I keep it up. No Viagra yet. Yeah, crashing. Here, let me add to the whole crashing is progress thing though. Crash smart. If your skill level out of 10 is like a 4, and you're trying something that is like a 10 out of 10 skill level and you crash, you probably didn't learn anything. You Hail Mary through it at the window, and if it goes through, it's pretty much totally luck. If it doesn't, you didn't really learn anything because you were so far beyond your limit that everything kind of happened like this, and you just didn't have time to process it. So if you're at a 4 out of 10, your crashes should be at a 5 or a 6 out of 10. It should be like, oh, I almost made it, or you had like a little correction right before it. I mean, if it's just a full send explosion where like you didn't, at the end of it, you can't be like, well, what the hell happened? All right, I did something wrong. It was kind of worthless. So keep the crashing within your realm of talent or skill level, I should say. What happens though is that as you get better and better and better as a pilot, that becomes more violent. You're going for huge, fast stuff. So when you do get it wrong, it's just a bomb going off. Prop Pirate says, thanks for the lessons. Have a great afternoon. You as well, my man. Tux recently had an ESC break in the weirdest way. Everything seemed perfectly fine, no damage. Showed up in the BL Heli Sweet Motors test. Beta flight is fine, but the motor would always get very hot. Replace the ESC and the motor is cool again. Wow, that is weird. That is very weird. Michael Benjamin says, true dat. Tux back in with, when I learned stuff like Rubik's Cubes, fly 1 or 2 mistakes high. Yeah, that too. That helps. Doesn't stop you from crashing the ground as soon as you do it low. Yep. Bailouts are really good to learn for sure. Michael Benjamin is out of here, and I'm at the bottom of the chat, so I'm out of here as well. Again, for anybody who joined late, my name is Aaron Ciotti. Everybody calls me Ciotti. Check out Ciotti FPV on Facebook, Instagram, Patreon. Here's a link to Patreon. If you got anything out of this video for as little as $3, you can get access to my Patreon. I do it just like Joshua Bardwell, where my tiers are just however much you've got, and you want to donate. It gets you access to my Patreon, and then I've been dumping a ton of really good micro info into the posts in there. I'll also put unreleased videos, practice batteries, just stuff that I don't necessarily want as like on my main YouTube channel. So yeah, track me down, follow me around. I do fun shit. Hopefully you guys had a good time. Mac Guy, yeah, $3 is my bottom tier. All the tiers get you access. So you can give me $3, you can give me $50. $50 you'll get my cell phone number, but $3 or $20 you get the same thing. It's all about what you can afford, what you think that I've earned is how Joshua Bardwell puts it, which is great. So yeah, jump in there. You'll get lots of good tech. You can talk to some of the other guys. You'll get access to a couple of different Facebook groups that I have set to private, the Micro Kings Castle, as well as I have a little swap and shop one for our little core group to trade stuff back and forth and sell stuff back and forth. So hopefully there's some cool little benefits that you guys appreciate on the Patreon side. Makes it worth a couple bucks a month. If not, just keep coming back to these streams because I'm not going to stop doing them. I'm going to keep riding Bardwell's coattails until the end of the earth. Subscribe here for notifications when I go live. What are the other things that people say to do? The bell thing, who cares about that? Thumbs up, yeah, great. Leave a comment, I'll reply to it, and get out there and fly. We've got, well, you guys in Europe, I don't know what time it is there, but in the US, we've got more time to fly. I might actually go put a couple batteries in. But thanks for joining me. You guys rule. Keep flying micros. See you next time. Tomorrow night at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Later.